Welcome to the Real Texas Radio Podcast. I am your host, Bronin. Thanks for tuning in once again to the Real Texas Radio Podcast. Or if you're joining the show 1000, welcomes. Another big show. As always, I'm going to talk about property taxes. Reminder, May 15th is the deadline to file your appraisal protest. It's not that hard to do. It's really worth your time. I'm going to give you some tips. I'm going to talk a little bit about the mayoral debate from Los Angeles, of all places. I have some listeners in California. So there were some clips. Homelessness was part of the discussion. How could it not be? So we'll talk about that before getting into some of the highlights from the most recent Dallas City Council meeting. It was all about the budget and what to do with trimming the fat. But before we dive in, if you haven't already, please make sure, like, subscribe, follow the Real Texas Radio Podcast from wherever you stream, and give the show a like. Makes a big difference. Follow the show on X at RTR_Bronin, RTR_Bronin. All right, now, you're listening to the Real Texas Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Bronin. Just a fed-up taxpayer, bringing you all of your Texas, local, and national news. Okay, first up, reminder to file a property appraisal protest if you live in Texas, particularly if you live in Dallas County. I mentioned a few episodes ago, I've had great success. I own a few properties in Dallas County, and I have seen a reduction in appraisal for every single one of them. And just as kind of a test, I'm using that company Ownwell, and they're not paying me to do any ad or anything like that. But Ownwell, if you live in Dallas County, you've probably received a mailer. You may have seen their ads. I think they've got a billboard on I-35 or somewhere. I've seen a billboard for Ownwell. And let me tell you this. This is the part that's annoying. The most time-consuming part of protesting your property appraisal is putting together your evidence. And I actually just listened to a presentation from the Dallas Central Appraisal District. Some of their leadership appeared before the Dallas County Commissioners earlier this week, and boy, they were some fast talkers. They didn't reference Ownwell by name, but they mentioned that there was a private company that was offering to assist homeowners with protesting their valuation, and it seemed like they attributed the spike in protests over the last few years to this kind of software. So I'm going to test them out, but I'm using them for one property that I have unsuccessfully protested in the past. So that's why I wanted to get some expertise, some outside expertise. We'll see what they do. But I uploaded evidence for them. They asked me for that. I was surprised because to me, if they are going to get paid, then they should be putting together the evidence, which is the most time-consuming part. But they want essentially their customers to do that. We'll see what happens. We'll see if I get any traction with them. But independently, on my own, I have clawed back approximately $1,000 worth of property taxes over taxation by the county. So please make sure you file, and you really need to be aware of recent sales in your neighborhood. I'll give you a few tips. If you live in a single family neighborhood, check to see the recent sales in your neighborhood. You can do that. You can use AI, you can use Redfin, you can use Zillow. And if you see any for sale signs in yards around you, we'll get into those real estate websites and see what the property is listing for. And if that property is asking less than what your valuation is in the DCAD portal, well, I would grab a screenshot of that and I would use that as part of your evidence. If you have, I would pull your whole street, and I would pull the street behind you, and I would pull the street in front of you, and I would look at all of the property values in your immediate vicinity, and everybody's going to have a different valuation. You want to look for properties similar to yours, comps. If you're in a 3-bed, 2-bath, that's what you want to be looking at. If a home that has recently been updated, and you can get pictures of that, again, Redfin, Zillow, Google Images. If a home has been recently updated and has a lower valuation or is just sold recently for lower, then grab that. That's a comp. I even put together a spreadsheet, and I put 5 comps or 4 comps plus my property in the spreadsheet and submitted that as my evidence. I included the square footage. I included the valuation per square foot, the DCAT appraisal, how many beds and how many baths in the spreadsheet. And I'm not a spreadsheet whiz by any stretch. And I have 3 successful protests under my belt. Another property was just assessed down by the county without me having to file a protest. I'm still considering protesting that property. I don't know how much traction I would get there. But you really, really, really should file a protest. And do you know what they actually said? The leadership from the appraisal district to the county commissioners, they actually said it is your duty as a homeowner, as a property owner, to protest your valuation if you think it is too high. It's your duty. That's what they said. And by the way, I have been receiving settlements, favorable settlements. That means I don't have to go to a hearing, which is great because I don't like doing the hearings. They're a pain. I've won at hearings before, but I've also lost. I think it's a lot more dicey going into a hearing. You have to present new evidence, more compelling evidence to convince the panel. It's a telephone. It's a telephone conference, essentially. So I always ask them going into a hearing, are you looking at my evidence? Because I email in the evidence, and I ask them to confirm that on the record. But I have no idea because I can't see them. So I hope they are, but I don't know. In any case, 60% of protests are successful. You get some reduction in property value. That said, you need to submit your evidence. The appraisal district said they rarely offer settlements, or they rarely agree to revise down appraisals where the protest is not accompanied with evidence. So make sure that you do that. The deadline, it is May 15th. It is May 15th. Unfortunately, under the current regime, you have to do it every single year. And you should. But as an ordinary citizen, I don't think we should have to do this. Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, he claims he wants to change the system so we would not have to do this but once every 5 years, which is great. But we'll see. We've heard a lot about property tax relief over the last few years in the state of Texas. And as John Wiley Price, one of the county commissioners here in Dallas, he pointed out during the discussion, it's a shell game. And nobody is actually getting much relief when you've got your Dallas ISD school district, for example, going and passing a bond with fewer than 10% of the electorate turning out. They're real proud of themselves. The Dallas ISD board and the Democrats, Rafael Lanchia, the state rep for the area, some of the city councilors, they're all congratulating the school district that they caused 90% of the electorate to sit out the election. Shame on them, but it just drives me nuts. I think that these school board, or pardon me, yes, maybe the school board elections, I'm not sure, but these bond elections, I think they're going to be converted to November elections as well. I would much rather a November electorate voting in bond elections. Hopefully when there's a hotly favored Republican candidate on the ballot as well, that would be helpful. But I digress. So again, May 15th, last thing I'll say about it for this show anyway, file your protest, go ahead and do it. And I think that you will be successful. I've also tweeted some other tips if you want to check me out on X at RTR_Bronin, RTR_Bronin. You can see my video where I provided some other tips and tricks for how to win in your protest of your property valuation in Dallas County. And by the way, if you are streaming the Real Texas Radio podcast in one of those major apps like Spotify or Apple, this is a reminder, if you haven't already, to please hit that 5-star button, download some episodes, save me to your favorites, and tell a friend to listen to the Real Texas Radio podcast as well, please. Okay, you've probably seen some of the cuts or the video from the LA mayoral debate from Wednesday night. You've probably seen some of them circulating. Spencer Pratt, he is challenging the incumbent mayor, Karen Bass, who, believe it or not, she was actually in the mix to be the vice president of the United States to Joe Biden. She was in contention for that position, allegedly. And there's a third candidate in the race. She's a city councilor who's been in the office for about 4 or 5 years. I can't even pronounce her name. Rahman might be her last name. And if you have not watched the LA mayoral debate, I strongly encourage you to do so. It's on YouTube. It's only 1 hour. I was watching it. I had no idea the gold mine of sound that it was going to produce. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to play some cuts here. And it's just astounding. When you compare LA to Dallas, when you think about homelessness, when you think about the police staffing situation in Prop U here in Dallas, let's go ahead and play some cuts.
That frankly, we have to pay the officers, had to give them a raise, had to expand recruitment because officers were going to other cities. We were not competitive. We have to make a decision, and frankly, my job as mayor, my number one job is to keep LA safe, and we can't keep LA safe with the size of the department we have now.
Did you just hear that? The mayor of LA, a Democrat so far left that she was in the mix to be the vice president under Joseph Biden. She just said that there are not enough police in Los Angeles, the second largest city in the United States that has a square mileage, I believe, 4 times the size of Dallas, maybe more. The budget of LA compared to Dallas, the 9th largest city in the United States, it's almost 3 times the budget. It's about $14 billion. It sounds like to me that Mayor Karen Bass is a Prop U supporter. She's a Prop U supporter, believe it or not. All right, I've got another cut here. You know we don't do any cursing or swearing on the Real Texas Radio podcast. It's a family show, which is why I was surprised. I believe that the mayoral debate was on broadcast television on the public airwaves. And here's Karen Bass. She made a bit of a gaffe, a bit of a Freudian slip here.
So yes, there were fire trucks that were broken, but there were also fire trucks that were out of use.
I'm not going to play that again if you didn't catch that. So then we have Spencer Pratt. He's being compared to Trump as rather a Trumpian figure. And this is what he has to say about homelessness, which I dare say that if you're a listener to the Real Texas Radio podcast, you may agree with.
Find all this money when we stop her useless open bed plans that actually doesn't put drug addicts in these housing that we're spending billions of dollars, and we're going to actually start checking where this money is going. Not to mention, when you get rid of all the drug addicts off the street, the police won't be responding to the drug addicts all day long.
Did you hear that? If you get rid of all the homeless, junkie bum, criminal, vagrant, mental patient, ne'er-do-well, recidivist reprobates from your city, then the police all of a sudden are going to have a lot of time back on their hands. And maybe they're not going to need overtime so much. Or maybe then some of these Democrat far-left psychos are going to be right, and we don't need to allocate so much money to the police force. If we can get rid of this minority of a minority of a minority of a minority, these alleged 3,500 to 4,000, that's what Dallas claims, these homeless, these junkie bums who they spend a lot of their time in Lou Sterrett in the Dallas County Jail over repeated arrests and charges. Of course, they're always let out, or almost always let out, because they're declared mentally incompetent by the Soros-funded DA's public defender office. So it was so refreshing to hear these truth bombs going off, and some of them were purely accidental. Here was one of the moderators. There were 3 moderators, including an immigrant, a Hispanic immigrant. This is the white lady. And I'm assuming all these people are Democrats because it's LA and you've got 2 Democrats up on the stage. But this is one of the questions, or the premise of one of the questions about homelessness from one of the Democrat moderators.
Homelessness, many residents say the homeless in their neighborhoods make them feel unsafe. They feel the homeless have more rights than the residents do. So these are...
The homeless have more rights than the residents do. Do you feel like that? Do you ever feel like that? I certainly feel like that. You know what? Press 1 for deportation, as the great Michael Savage used to say about illegal aliens. Except, you know what? These native-born homeless, although I don't know the demographics in Los Angeles, you could have illegal alien homeless there, but in Dallas, these are native-born. Many of them are white males with absolutely no excuse. And you know what? Of all of the white males that Democrats, they love to bleep all over, the homeless, unless you're homeless, then you get a free pass. Then they want to just pour money and services and resources all over you. If you're a fentanyl using, meth head, resource depleting, homeless, junkie bum, criminal, vagrant, mental patient, ne'er-do-well, but you happen to be a white, then all of a sudden you get into a protected class. It is such a disgrace. And you know what? I've got another cut here as well. This is the Hispanic immigrant moderator of the Los Angeles mayoral debate. He is pressing, I don't know if she's South Asian, Indian, this councilwoman who's been in the office for 5 years, asking her, what have you done to solve homelessness in Los Angeles?
Councilmember Ramos, so you promised to clear half of the encampments by the Olympics and all of it by the end of your term if you get elected. Yes. My question to you, you've been in the city council for 5 years. Why are we barely seeing this plan yesterday? I think it was posted on your Instagram, and is this realistic?
Why are we barely seeing a plan, is what he asked. That's a great question. That's a great question. Why are we barely seeing a plan? And do you know what? All of the answers that Karen Bass and Rahman, the city councilor, provided, it was all talking points from the professional excuse makers. The permanent supportive housing, we need to get them beds, we need to get them rehab. That's not what they want. As challenger Spencer Pratt obviously pointed out, if it were just a matter of getting these people into housing, the United States collectively, but particularly the state of California and particularly the city of LA, have shelled out so much money for homelessness that the figure is tantamount to the GDP of multiple nations over multiple years. And yet, every single year, the number of homeless people grows. Oh, except Karen Bass, the incumbent mayor of LA, she had an excuse for that as well. Why does it feel like we're seeing more and more homeless people wherever we live, and yet she's doing such a great job? This is what she has to say about it.
I think that I deserve a second term, and I'm going to fight for that because we have made significant progress in a variety of areas. For example, homelessness was going up year after year, and under my watch, it is the first time we've had a decrease in street homelessness. While it went up in the country, 18%, it came down in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's just, it's a mystery. The homelessness nationally, it's going up. Not in my city. Then where is it going up then, Mayor Bass? Is it going up in Dallas? Is it going up in Austin? Is it going up in Houston, San Antonio, San Francisco, New York? All of these mayors and all of these leaders in every city, they praise their professional excuse makers, their homelessness consultants and partners and nonprofits. They're full of praise for this group because in our city we're solving homelessness. We know how to solve homelessness, but everywhere else, point the finger everywhere else, it's going up. We're not the cause of the overall national year-over-year rise every single year. It's not us. It's not LA. It's somewhere else. It's other people. Mayor Bass, I know that you're a woman who appreciates statistics. Do you have any statistics that you could provide about the homeless, particularly in LA, that probably apply to other cities as well? Do you have any statistics about the homeless?
Crime is down. Firefighters don't have to go out. Firefighters spend 30% of their time putting out fires that are related to homelessness. Business.
30% of fires are caused by the homeless in LA. 30% of the fires. So do you know what I'm hearing? If you eliminate the homeless by deporting them to Crack Island, which is, talk about being generous, charitable, benevolent, by giving them Crack Island, then you want to save some money? Then it sounds like you could lay off a lot of the firefighters. You could probably close fire stations because the people without houses cause most of the fires. Even though if you own a home or you own an apartment building, you're required to have all kinds of fire protection and suppression technology that's very expensive. When we know for a fact, by the admission of the incumbent mayor, Karen Bass, that the culprit in almost 1 out of 3 fires, probably more, I dare say she's being conservative, are the homeless. That city councils across the United States like to pretend are on the fast track for canonization at the Vatican. I would deport them all so quickly. Give me the reins, they're gone. Give me the reins, they will not be in our jails anymore. They will not be at Parkland Hospital, the county hospital in Dallas. They will not be in our courtrooms anymore. They will be gone and you will forget about them. And anybody who complains about them, you know what you're going to get? You're going to get a free ticket on the Crack Island Ferry, and you can go and visit with them and let us know. I wouldn't recommend it if you're a woman. I wouldn't recommend going near them if you're a woman. And I wouldn't recommend going near any homeless if you're worried about being set on fire, which is one of the, if the homeless who they're so good at panhandling. They're so good at finding out if there's a vacant apartment somewhere in a large corporate apartment building to break into and destroy and turn into a barn, that you'd rather lease the apartment to a goat or a herd of goats than one homeless person. They've got all kinds of skills when it comes to activity like that. But then if they were going to put a resume, you know what one of their skills could be, core skills? Set fires. That would be on their resume. You know what? I'm so livid. I watched that mayoral debate, most of it. I couldn't believe the sound I was getting out of that. I couldn't believe it. And, I know it's just a debate, and I know that, anybody can sound good on TV for an hour, especially when you've got experience in the media, as does Spencer Pratt. But how could you vote for that, the third candidate in the race, Rahman, the city councilor? Feckless, DEI hack, useless. All she wants to do is get more money for more beds that homeless, fentanyl-using super meth heads have no interest in whatsoever. Last cut I'm going to play on this issue before I move on to Dallas. This is Spencer Pratt talking about homelessness. Yeah, Nithya Rahman, the councilwoman who just wants to spend more money on just the same plan that doesn't work for homelessness, because they don't want a home. They don't want a home. And guess what? You don't want them in a home anywhere near you. This is Spencer Pratt laying down some reality.
How many beds you give these people, they are on super meth, they are on fentanyl. The DEA statistic says 93% of this is a drug addiction problem.
93%.
Rahman's plan for treatment first. I will go below the Harbor Freeway tomorrow with her, and we can find some of these people she's going to offer treatment for. She's going to get stabbed in the neck. These people do not want a bed. They want fentanyl or super meth. These ideas cost us over $400 million to house. For 70, what did you say? 3,000 people for $400 million is an absolute failure for both of them. They're a team.
It's the same thing in Dallas. It's the same thing in New York. It's the same thing in Austin. It's the same thing in Houston. It's the same thing everywhere. You let these white liberal Democrats who don't live anywhere near homeless people, they don't take your public transit, but they will take your tax dollars. And they will BS you, and they will be able to persuade every stupid Democrat hack on the city council in X city to keep approving their contracts and keep accepting these non-solutions. And meanwhile, homelessness, it's growing everywhere. There is this loyalty to this population of leeches, these resource depleting, good for nothing bottom feeders, that all they do is they make your parks unusable. They make you not want to visit downtown. They make you not want to use the public transit that these Democrats twist your arm, both of them at the same time. They try to force people to take the public transit and ride with these asylees who they refuse to do anything about. I'm so sick of it. I am so sick of it. Ugh. Okay, let's go ahead and talk Dallas. So earlier this week, the Dallas Morning News ran a piece on Mayor Johnson's call to the city council to look for ways where they can trim the fat out of the city budget. Now, the budget has ballooned in recent years, even under Mayor Eric Johnson, a Republican convert under his leadership. And the Dallas Morning News, they published a few quotes from some of the other city councilors, including Adam Basildua, and including Paula Blackman, Frick and Frack, and including Laura Cadena. And they all essentially, they responded with, well, it's not my job to cut the budget. That was Paula Blackman. That's the city staff. That's their job to cut the budget or to come up with the budget. Oh, okay. And Lara Cadena basically called the mayor, I think the expression she used was all hat and no cattle, basically calling him out as full of bleep. And then Adam Basildua, he presented a factoid in the discussion and wondered, maybe we could trim some fat out of Mayor Johnson's $1.7 million security detail, the annual budget on his security detail. Now, Mayor Johnson is, he at one point, he said he wasn't doing public appearances because he was afraid of security or afraid of a security lapse, rather, threats to his safety. So I don't know about that. You know what? I was surprised. So $1.7 million for his security detail. I don't know that that's gotten a whole lot of scrutiny. Whereas in Harris County, in Houston, Texas, the mental patient county judge, Lena Hidalgo, she is up close to $1 million. I think she came in under $1 million in 2024 for her security.
Hey, if you don't approve this, I can't even bring security detail, even though the leaks about where I'm going already got people to say they're going to come. So I just, do what you do. I just want to make sure the public knows what's happening. This is the last.
Yeah, so it was a little surprising, but you know what? The 75% of the budget in the city, it's staff, personnel, including police and fire, which, because of Prop U here in Dallas, means we need to keep growing the police unless there's a change in the charter again. And it's the same in Dallas ISD. About 75% of the budget is staff. But one area, and this has emerged in Austin, is prolific, redundant, duplicative spending with software programs. I think in Austin, the city pays for or subscribes to north of 200 different pieces of software. And the thing with software is it changes constantly, and companies merge constantly. They're buying up each other constantly. They're developing new features. And because it's a highly competitive industry, which means you need to keep a very close pulse on the software spending. Because another example, you have a subscription, for example, to Calendly, if you've ever heard of that one, right? So you pay, let's say an organization, you've got 20 people, and 20 people are using Calendly. So you're essentially paying for 20 different chairs. Okay, well, next thing you know, maybe there is some restructuring, maybe some people departed their positions of the 20, and you're still paying for the 20 licenses, but now maybe you have 13 people using it. Or maybe another piece of software that you're paying for has added a Calendly-like feature, and for either the same cost, they're not charging you until your contract comes up for renewal again for that amenity. Maybe you can move everybody off Calendly and just use the other software that you're paying for. So you really have to keep an eye on it. And the more software that you're paying for, the closer you need to be scrutinizing it. So I was encouraged that not just Kara Mendelson, who, by the way, she has told me that she has actually obtained the list of software that Dallas spends, because she believes that if Austin is overpaying for software to the tune of anywhere between $45 and $140 million per year, she thinks that Dallas would put Austin to shame in the negative sense. It has way more bloat than that. In addition to the fact that Dallas has 1,000 more employees now than it did in 2019, at least 1,000 more employees. And I'm not talking about police and fire, other kinds of people. So I asked for her if she could release the list. She's trying to find out if that is legal. But I think she will get some free consulting. The city will get some free consultants if that software list is released and people get eyes on it. We'd have a field day with offering the suggestions. I think that's a major area to target for cuts in the budget. The other piece, fleet vehicles. Apparently, the city owns many vehicles that are barely used. I'm not talking about police cars. I'm talking about other civilian type vehicles. Apparently, that's another area. That means we're insuring all of those vehicles. We're paying for the maintenance, paying to monitor them. So, there's plenty of areas where the city can be looking for cuts, not just libraries, the only thing that the low IQs want to talk about. And let's see, I've got a few more cuts that I want to play here. Oh, let me play the little bit about the software. This is the city manager responding to Bagman, Chad West, who's probably the leader of the cabal. I was glad to hear that the leader of the cabal was interested in cutting software spending, saw that as a real concern. So, the budget discussions, I will say this, you can criticize Kim Tolbert, the city manager, all you want. I think she could be worse. What I do see is it looks like the budget process starting much earlier in the year, which I think is to great benefit. It looks like people are taking it more seriously. So let me go ahead. I've got the cut here.
Structured IT governance process that is managed under the ITS department. So our director of that department understands the role that he's going to play, and even helping look at the ways that various departments have either brought different types of softwares and applications online. We know that in some departments, those numbers have grown with the types of applications, and the utilization may not be commensurate to what we should be actually paying for. So that will be a part of our process. We actually started that in 2024. I think we made some good movement in deleting, turning off, reducing some of the licenses, but that will be a part of the ongoing way that we look at efficiencies across all of the different IT platforms.
We need a list, city manager. We need to know exactly how much was cut. We need to see how many licenses there are. This should all be released. This should be available to the public. Let us get our eyes on it and see. We want to help you. You use the public for some help. But they don't like to publish these kind of lists. I've noticed that. Have you noticed that? They don't like to give that kind of detail. And, another area, Laurie Blair, nice lady, new to the city council. She's just not up to the task. She's not up to it. This is her asking a really dumb question that she should already know the answer to. Another area that was raised are tax abatements. Some of the council, they were asking, are tax abatements affecting our ability to collect property taxes? The tax abatements that we vote for every single time they come to the horseshoe, that we encourage our developer donors to bring to us so that way we can approve getting rid of more property from the tax rolls and just having the rest of the city subsidize it. So Laurie Blair, she votes for all these tax abatements without question. But here she is asking staff.
That we know how much of this number is because of abated taxes, and how much of it's going to drop off, and when some of that abatement will drop off, so that we can see what we're actually looking at.
Batement. I think she said batement. When is some of that batement going to be falling off? She's a real wordsmith, that one, Laurie Blair. And another piece of information slipped into the presentation, which I thought was very interesting. There are 116 employees in Dallas with medical claims exceeding $100,000. And there's been a marked spike in pharmacy claims, particularly for the GLP-1 drugs.
Seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug.
Yeah, Ozempic. I've noticed, I've noticed there are a few on around the horseshoe who look like they might be on Ozempic, which I think is totally fine. I am very skeptical of pharmaceuticals and the healthcare industry, but if I can see that it's actually working, if my own eyes can prove to me that the medicine is working, then I'm fine with that. And Mayor Johnson, he's not looking too bad. He looks like he's lost quite a bit of weight. And, well, I'll just leave it at that. But if Ozempic is working, and I believe it was launched as a diabetes drug. Obviously, we have a huge problem with diabetes in the state of Texas. I believe 1/3 of Texans are either pre-diabetic or diabetic, including children. So if Ozempic is reducing, eliminating diabetes and risk for it, and diabetes is, it's really just like the portal to every other kind of health problem imaginable, all of the extremely expensive health problems, then I'm fine with people going on to the Wegovy or Ozempic. That's fine. Ideally, costs overall, then healthcare costs would be coming down. You would think, right? You would think. So I know there's no overnight magic. Although I have seen people respond rapidly to Ozempic. I had a neighbor, in fact, he was on Ozempic before really everybody was on it a few years ago. I watched him shrink up, and his insurance stopped paying for it, so he stopped taking the drug. I think it was $1,000 a month at that point, but now I'm seeing it for like $100 or $200 a month. And he put the weight back on for sure. So anyway, the healthcare costs, that was another item that hopefully the city of Dallas is looking at getting under control. But I know how tricky those insurance companies can be. And I'm going to cap off the episode. And by the way, again, I will just refer you to X, my X account, RTR_Bronin, RTR_Bronin. I post the video of usually the audio that I play if you want to see it, in addition to my other pithy comments and commentary. So at the beginning of the Dallas City Council meeting on Wednesday, toward the beginning, the council members, they had the opportunity to bring forth amendments to the budget. And one of the amendments, the debate ended up getting very convoluted, I thought. But essentially, Paul Ridley, the council member District 14, which includes downtown, and I'm in his district, he put forth an amendment that would have approved $6 million in ADA upgrades to the Dallas City Hall building, which, as you know, might be demolished any day now for a potential brand new Mavericks basketball arena and entertainment district and casino. So essentially, there wasn't an official record vote, but there was a vote of whether to approve this ADA money. And essentially, it came down to, do you want to save City Hall or not? Essentially, you could boil it down. And 6 of the city councilors supported the ADA upgrades for Dallas City Hall. 6. So a minority. So it's not looking good for the future of City Hall. But I don't know. I'm not going to talk much about it yet. We'll learn more apparently later this month. I'll keep an eye on that story. All right. This is a good place to stop. I am Bronin, your host of the Real Texas Radio Podcast, which if you haven't, again, please like, subscribe, follow, download, hit 5 stars for me. Makes a big difference. And follow me on X at RTR_Bronin, RTR_Bronin. I will catch you on the next episode.